I'm setting an example for my kids.
I got me a side hustle.
I have more control of my destiny.
I need multiple streams of income.
It's hard work, but I'm working for me.
A job is cool, but I need more.
It's all about being self-employed. You're tuned into the world of Self-Employed and Rising with Art Taylor, where we bring you the amazing stories of people who are challenging the odds and following their dreams of self-employment. Learn from their successes and be inspired. Hear creative ideas for your business and find tips to take your hustle to another level. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Self-Employed and Rising. I'm Art Taylor. And today we're going to talk about the music business, but probably not the music business that you or your parents grew up with. We're going to talk about the music business as it is today, one that is filled with opportunities for young, creative people to express their artistry in various forms, and also to combine their art with that of others and different mediums. And we're seeing this exciting development with art in general all across the board. And it's so nice to be able to talk with someone today who is right in the middle of that. In fact, just starting her professional journey into music and has recently started a business to do that. Aryssa Lee Burrs. Welcome to the show, Aryssa.
Hi, Art. Thank you so much. I'm really, really excited to be here talking with you.
Well, Aryssa, as I said in the opening, we grew up with a music industry that was probably a lot more foreclosing of people with talent. It was an industry, it seems, that eliminated a lot more people with skills than it enabled people to actually thrive and prosper. If you couldn't get connected with the right people at the right time in the right place, you were kind of out. And we saw all kinds of people with great talent never pursue their musical or artistry in any way, and certainly not professionally. But today there are different ways of going about that. And I hope we can get into that somewhat and really learn from you how you're moving your musical talent forward, what opportunities you see before you, what are some of the struggles that you're dealing with, and how do you see yourself getting over them? Get into more about what is your vision, so to speak, of your talent and your music, and where do you think it can go? So let me just start by just asking you, first of all, how did you get into music? You're a singer. And what led you down this path?
Well, I am a singer, and I hope to continue cultivating skills outside of just singing, but that have larger creative goals with them as well. But I first got into everything. I am a lucky one because both my parents are musicians. Both my parents are full working. It's their whole lives as well. So growing up, I had a household that was, on one hand, very privileged because my parents knew kind of what steps to help me once I started displaying my own interest in wanting to learn an instrument, wanting to start singing, wanting to start doing musical theater. My parents knew how to find those resources for me. But then the real privilege, which I think I'm only starting to understand now, is that my parents are both incredible musicians and they are full-fledged artists within themselves. So that meant that the music and the creativity that was around me, that surrounded and kind of was the foundation of all of my upbringing, was of a really high level from jump for me. I didn't have to wait to college till I was in college to first hear a really great choir or like first hear a really wonderful singer. I wasn't just listening to pop music that my friends were listening to. Not that pop music is a bad thing, but we don't hear the fullest of voices in pop music. My parents always have tried to impart within me that if you want to be a great singer, you need to listen to great singers. So we listened to Sarah Vaughan and Renee Marie and Diane Reeves, Eva Cassidy, Ella, just constantly really wonderful music making happening around me, which only left me more and more interested to, I think, explore it for myself too. So I started doing a lot of musical theater. My very first instrument was violin. Took piano lessons eventually, but singing and being like a vocalist that performs was kind of the thing that stuck. So much so that I ended up going to college for it. I know that I have other skills in life because music requires a lot of skills, but I don't have a lot of like on paper skills. Music really has been the thing for me for forever. So I went to college, I got my master's too. Just finished in 2020 with a master's in voice and opera performance. So yeah, took the step.
So, you're a lucky one in that many artists run across parents who say, well, what are you going to do with that? If you're a dancer, what are you going to do with that? If you're a singer, how are you going to make a living as a singer? If you're a Broadway hopeful, how are you going to get an acting career? Who makes it in Hollywood? You constantly hear the negatives, but yet it looks like you had a pair of parents who encouraged you and who taught you and who positioned you. How fortunate, and you use the word privilege, and I would argue that yes, that was a privilege, but also it was their responsibility as parents to share with you the struggle that they went through to get what they had and maybe help you avoid some of those pitfalls. So yeah, I think that's an important thing. And in any field, we all come with benefits and assets that hopefully our parents gave us, even in some cases where maybe the things we learned were what not to do from some parents and some friends and some people senior to us. But we have these blessings, gifts, however you might describe them, that come from people before us. And it's so good that you acknowledge that. But let me ask you, so you graduated. And so what was your thought process coming out of college? What did you plan to do as, many might ask, with your music degree, with your singing skill?
Yeah. See, I think this is probably why, and this is the moment in my life that we probably could connect on art, because I when I got to my undergraduate degree, I quickly understood that I didn't have the same interest in traditional classical music as a lot of my other peers did. I was also lucky in that I found a small friend group that I think we all were black sheep in that way, and we're able to then encourage each other. But yeah, so leaving my undergrad, I was a little bit confused as to like, well, there is this one very specific path that I've been taught that all of my peers and the people and the other classical singers of my generation understand is these are the steps that you take to then go and be a singer. And that version of singing is having a full opera career, singing at the biggest opera houses. And you do so by you go and get a master's at the best school that you can go to. And then you do these things called young artist programs. And it is a very, very narrow pathway that I understood then that I both had no interest in. And I shouldn't say no, I had almost no interest in. And I also couldn't see myself being one of the few that was going to be successful doing it. So the only thing I could think to do, though, was continue learning about how I want to make music and how I can work with my voice. So I did go and get a master's degree, which was a really important time for me because I then got to understand, okay, I have all of these musical ideas that I really want to look at that aren't just operatic or classical singing. But I can also bring those ideas into classical singing, and I can bring the vocal technique that I've learned in classical singing and bring that to more popular styles and sing jazz really healthily and things. So going and studying some more, I was able to kind of overlap my interests and my knowledge, I guess. And from there, I started understanding, okay, maybe I could audition for some opera houses and some companies, and maybe I could also explore putting on concerts, which is where I'm getting myself to now, or at least working towards right now.
Okay, so what we're going to do is take a short break. And when we come back, I want to talk with you about some of those projects that you're taking on now. This is Self-Employed and Rising, and we'll be right back after this break.
My life flows on in endless song above all its lamentation. My name is Aryssa Burrs, and I am so excited to be partnering with the beautiful organization Phenomenal Woman to present for you Identify. Identify is a concert experience with the very simple goal of creating a comfortable and a safe space for listeners and collaborators of all kinds to come and find support and feel empowered within their own pillars of identity. And what easier and more fun way is there to do that than by using music and art as a catalyst for those conversations? So, on January 3rd at 3 p.m., I invite you to get into your comfiest clothes in your beautiful home with whatever your most favorite beverage is poured for yourself. And please join us for our presentation of Identify. How can I keep from singing? Oh, how can I keep from singing?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our show, Self-Employed and Rising. And I'm speaking with my special guest, Aryssa Burrs, who is making music in her own way. And what we want to do is talk more with Aryssa about some of the projects that she's taken on. So tell us, Aryssa, about one in particular. Tell me about your project, Identify. What are some of the elements of it? And I also want to know, and we'll get into, what is some of the business behind it? How did you produce it?
So Identify is a concert experience that I have been building for a couple years now. It was first born out of when I was in a master's program and I was supposed to put on a master's recital. I already then was not angry, fed up, but I was kind of tired around the fact that the recital opportunities that are brought to you in academia, you really are just asked to kind of fulfill a couple boxes, sing in these languages, sing from these time periods. And I was always baffled and a bit disinterested by the idea of performing for arbitrary reasons like that, instead of asking a question about why is it that we need to be singing right now? Why is it that I need to share in this time with anybody that's coming to this concert? So I tried to really look at that for myself, and I tried to then say, well, what is something that I need to talk about? What is something that I need to use music to talk about? And the large topic of identity is what came up first for me. And it got me really thinking about how we are starting to see more and more spaces in life that help us feel both supported and maybe challenged in our different portions of ourselves. But why not make another one? Why not work to create another pretty safe space that we get to use also a generally safe medium, which is creation, which is music and the arts and making of some kind to broach those conversations about ourselves with one another. So I have built this concert called Identify that at the moment it lives as a work of Aryssa, where Aryssa uses music of all different genres and art making, visual arts, other kinds of creation, again, of all different genres to try and share myself. It's formed through looking at what I keep coming back to are the pillars of ourselves. I can't get outside of the thinking about that our personal self is a house and that we hold it up with the different pillars that hold up the roof of the house. And so why not look at each one of those pillars and then find some art across all these different mediums, because we talk about the same things across all mediums of music making and art making, to then express these things. So Identify has now been presented virtually once, and it's been presented. It had its in-person premiere just last weekend, which was really thrilling and exciting in Washington, D.C. Yeah, I feel very dedicated to looking across, not even across, but looking outside of musical genre and artistic genre to just ask the question of self and ask the question of what is the art that makes me feel empowered or unchallenged in these different parts of myself. So it means that the concert has a whole set looking at my gender identity, looking at womanhood through the lens of the female pop artists that mean a lot to me today, as well as having a female visual artist that inspires me on the daily happening behind the band and I, all the way to looking at a set of partnership, looking at how our romantic partners have shape our humans and shape our lives. And so we looked at a set of Debussy pieces that look at this character of Billie Teese as she goes on a journey through relationship. So I identify is the thing in life that I am the most both interested and proud of so far.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm just the whole thing just kind of seems daunting to me. I mean, I had the great honor of being at the premiere to see it live, and the pieces that you had to pull together to make this happen seemed daunting to me. I mean, you had to have obviously great musicians who could play music of different genres. You also had to have a venue. Let's just start with that. You know, you had to find a place to do this in Washington, D.C., where you decided to premiere it. You had to then fill the seats, which is also not easy to do. You had to make sure that the visual arts aspect of it was running properly. There just seemed to be an overwhelming amount of pieces that had to come together in order for you to do this. And I guess what I'm curious about is, where did you acquire this talent, this skill set to be able to manage such an enterprise like this?
So, okay, where did I acquire this skill set? I wish I had a specific answer, and I'm not sure that I do, but my broad answer is that the idea of the curation of all those different ideas that you were just speaking about, the act of doing that is an important piece of my own art making. So it is also something that I've been interested in for a long time. All the way back in high school, I was beginning to build concerts like this for a purpose, to raise money for whatever, not whatever, the causes were always very important, but finding my friends that were wonderful singers and that were also interested in singing this song or that song and bringing them together and finding the right pianist. I have been dipping my toe into that for a while. Identify, this previous version of it, was certainly the largest moment of me doing that. But at this point, because of all the other work that I do outside of just building concerts, so getting hired to be a soloist here or be in this choir or sing with this wedding band, I now have a lot of very personal and highly artistic relationships in my life that I take very seriously, and they mean so much to me. And so it means that I have this pool of people around me that are way better at the things that they do than I am at the things that I do. And I am just asking them to come and share a little bit of themselves as well. And when there is high levels of music making happening, as well as people that are interested in the topic, then you almost can't really go wrong. Then stuff tends to just iron itself out. So the venue came about because I applied. Identify was a part of a festival at the Atlas Performing Arts Center in Washington, D.C. They do this wonderful festival called Intersections every year. So they provide a lot of things, such as just being in the space, having a Friday night venue to do a show. They provide a sound and a lighting board engineer, things that bits of production that I'm just starting to learn about. And I'm very grateful to have had this experience to then be able to say, okay, now I know what it's like to be in conversation about lighting, or to be in conversation about sound and what levels need to happen. Not to mention then also working with a marketing team. And I have a very close friend in my life that does all of the marketing for ALB Produces so far, which is the company that does these things. She is a designer, so she designs everything. And then we just kind of explore the next steps. Personal relationship, I think, is starting to show itself to me as being a really highly important thing to making any of this work, in terms of having the artist to make the art with you, and having the people that want to then come and see it and share in it as well. I try and honor as best I can all of the family and friends that want to be.
Well, I can definitely see the collaborations. I mean, it's really obvious that the people who are performing with you know you and love you, and they want to make sure that they're there for you in every sense of being there, which is, I guess, why everything came off so well, last week. And I want to congratulate you for that. So we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back this time, I want to get into the company that you've created and talk a bit about the vision that you have for it. We'll be right back after this break. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show, Self-Employed and Rising. I'm Art Taylor, and I'm here with Aryssa Lee Burrs, who is a singer and musical producer. And what we want to talk about now is the company that she's recently formed. Aryssa, tell us about Aryssa, A-L-B, Aryssa Lee Burrs, A-L-B, and what your vision is for it and how it's doing so far.
Yeah, ALB Produces. I wanted to have one space. So, as I've been saying, I'm so interested in curating artistic experiences like Identify and like other larger ideas. And I wanted to have a specific space that wasn't just Aryssa as Aryssa the singer, that wasn't just saying, hey, I'm going to be singing these 4 composers on a concert. Do you want to come? But something that has, what I am hoping and envisioning, is a bit of an artistic community, and I think a symbiotic one at that. So artists that want to also use their art to ask larger questions and foster conversations around the things that they feel like they need to talk about in life and can't really do it any other way other than through music and art, as well as audience members that, and the word audience still even feels too distant. I need to find a better term, because I see those folks that have an open heart and an open mind and want to engage with others through creativity as well, as much more than just being an audience or just being a listener, but an active engagement in themselves.
Well, I have this mind that is kind of linear, but, so one thing sort of proceeds after the next, after the next. And I have to always appreciate that artists don't necessarily think in a linear fashion. You know, music, for instance, can flow in a linear way, right? It just notes the next note, the next note, the next paragraph, the next measure, the next page, and so forth. But how you bring it together is not necessarily linear. It's more relational, right? How music sort of comes together. You hear something, you see something, you talk to someone, you read something, and all of these things are happening simultaneously almost. And an artist is able to pull from each and ultimately create something. What you seem to be adding to that complexity is that you're not going to be performing necessarily with the same people. You're not an orchestra that has a set group of performers. You're not a band even that has a set group of performers. What you are is Aryssa Lee Burrs, music maker and producer. And it seems that you will be creating experiences that bring people in that also will allow different performers and artists to engage in different ways as well. Maybe each time you produce something. Is that what I'm hearing? And if so, how do you make that work from a business standpoint? How does this work? And maybe you're still experimenting with that, you know. Maybe you're still experimenting with that, but it's a fascinating concept. And I think it's also one that perhaps will keep your quote, and I don't want to use the phrase audiences work together before the show. We'll come up with a term to use. It will keep people engaged. It'll keep people interested. It'll keep people thinking, well, what is she going to do next? You know, I don't know what your thoughts are about that, but
I in I think that there is a practical, which it's never my intention to be sneaky by any means. So I'm just going to share this thing that has gone through my head. I don't know if it's true or not. Um, but I think that there is a practical upside to um, engaging as many different, particularly musicians and artists, as one being or one company can, which is simply that the more people that I go to and say, I have this idea, I want to share it with somebody. Would you like to maybe do that with me? And really genuinely sharing myself with them as I'm asking them to come and do the same thing, that gives people a bit of ownership in the project then as well. And the more people that feel ownership over a project, that's the more people that they also then want to, with pride, invite and bring into the experience as well. So I think that that is one very practical reasoning too for trying to work with different people from one project to the next. Um, it is literally a way to expand an audience, I think.
well, let me not get you off. Let me get you off your thought, but that's really new, and I think we need to explore that a little bit. So when you say you don't see them as an audience, it sounds like you don't see these people as passive participants watching. You see them as part of the whole experience. Maybe is that what we're saying?
Absolutely. That the experience is not even particularly inspired by the audience, but is nothing but a conversation starter for every single person involved. So that means a person that is playing this wonderful guitar piece in the middle of this piece, or the person that's in seat 4, row F. Um, that they, like with Identify, that person in seat 4, row F then goes home and looks at their partner and gets to say, I don't know if you know this about me, but here's this piece of music that I love because it helps me feel empowered for this reason. Do you have anything like that for you? If not, also that person going up to the guitarist after the show and saying, I loved how you played this because it made me think about this part of myself. Um, yeah, that's my main goal with ALB Produces, is to um, create a space for conversation that we just happen to use creation as the medium to do so. Um, yeah, and with that, my hope is to be making the highest levels of art that we can make, from the music that happens, from the actual like physical experience of being in the room together, whether it be the lighting when you're walking in, or say that we get to have beverages as a part of a concert sometime, making it so that that beverage is doing nothing but elevating the conversation that you're a part of.
Well, I'll tell you, it's very much in alignment with the distributed nature of the world today. A top down and heavy structure laden project or enterprise is less likely to be successful in today's world than one that is more flexible and fluid and collaborative in its creation and in its operation. And the reason for that is a lot of what you say. There's talent abound. And if we're going to be innovative, wouldn't it be great to be able to take advantage of the thoughts and abilities and assets that each and every person bring to the table, while at the same time sharing your assets? And you develop in that way a certain affinity for the success of the product and so forth. And so this is very much in line with how business is being done today. So I think you're definitely onto something. And we're not in, 1960 anymore, where, you had to get a band together and someone had to prove that they loved that band and you need to get a contract. And today there are many more ways of making music. I want to talk about that when we come back to the different ways in which you can make money in the music industry today, or in the arts industry for that matter. And you're right at the forefront, I think, of this new wave. We'll be right back after this. Well, welcome back, everyone. This is the final segment of our show today, and I've been having this wonderful conversation, as you've heard, with Aryssa Lee Burrs. So, Aryssa, getting back into that conversation, what would you say were some of the key takeaways that you got from your last production of Identify?
So the first thing that comes to mind is a bunch of technical logistical skills that I, through this experience, am beginning to develop for myself, which are things like creating I'm not doing the visual artwork myself, but creating all of the visual presentation that includes the visual artwork. That is something that originally I thought I would have needed to have spent money and hired somebody to have made a projection, made the slideshow. And as well as learning the skill to begin to do that for myself, I've also learned the next steps of how I want to grow that skill and the next things that I want to do with it for next time. But it's pretty exciting to understand that there's a nice long list of literal production, technical production things of a performance that I'm starting to really develop the skills for myself to be able to take care of. And it's not that it should be one person's job to do everything. No. But for right now, because this is so fresh and new and I don't have an endless amount of money to go and hire all of the people to do all of the things, it's pretty cool to get to understand that I can develop the skills for myself to put on a production, to really put on a concert that looks like something that I am hoping it looks like. So that's a nice, not that I gave all the details to the list, but that was a nice list of.
No, good. So how do you encourage other people? For instance, I introduced you to a friend of mine who's kind of in a similar place right now. She's young, she's talented, she wants to go out and start doing things. How do you encourage others to pursue their passion and also make it work from a business standpoint?
It's it's hard. It's a hard thing because there are so many avenues in our world that just tell you that everything you have to do needs to be monetized, everything that you have to do in life, all creative ventures only have to be productive for somebody else, and that they can't just be simply you making art in your own way. So I think that is something that I try and just like acknowledge off the bat, both for myself and then in conversation with anybody else that is also. I've talked a lot with other singer friends that don't want to just be singing opera. You know, they don't want to just have to rely on, like I was saying before, a very narrow pathway of a career. Um, but for my own personal self, I have worked very hard to keep my artistic horizons really broad. And this is what I would suggest to anybody else too, that because I keep my own eyes really wide open as to all of the ways that I can feel fulfilled and inspired within artistic work, um, it means that there's more work available to me. So because I'm not just saying I just want to sing pop music or I just want to sing classical music, but I want to do both of those things. I want to sing at weddings. I want to sing a concert of Russian literature that I literally did this afternoon, Russian neoclassical literature, as well as I want to build my own concerts. Um, I think the reason that I am able to say that I am like a self-employed and self-sufficient singer right now, that all of my work from is artistic adjacent, is singing, it's because I have left all of those avenues open to myself, which is both from interest, from fulfillment, and then also from the development of skills to be able to be strong in a bunch of different avenues. We're not taught that in school, you know.
I love it. Yeah, no, no, no. I love it. I love that you see the world of opportunity ahead of you. And, the artist has to, I think, the artist has to make us believe that things that we don't think are possible are indeed possible. And I am believing that by having this broadest possible venue that you've created for yourself, this broadest possible genre. In other words, your world is art itself, which I think is just so amazing. And we have the tools now to make a person who isn't classically or formally trained in one thing or another to be able to access them. And that's one of the, I think, great things about the digital age. And there's some things that aren't so great, obviously. But one of the great things about the digital age is that the tools for collaboration and art production are more robust probably than ever in the history of the world. So people can do things now. People can do more to inspire and to create hope. So I'm really glad that you're taking this broad approach. And I don't think you're going to be the first. I mean, I don't think you're going to be the last. I'll put it to you that way. I think that people are going to reject more and more this narrow world of what people have previously defined as music. Are you seeing more and more of your friends opt to pursue careers in a way you're thinking?
I certainly am seeing a lot of my peers, yeah, that even if it's as simple as just auditioning for things outside of opera or auditioning for things outside of musical theater, um, going in for film, going in for a straight play. Um, yes, that is certainly happening. And I also just want to add too that even though I talk a big talk about a broad scope of interests, I just want to make sure that I say that that is still in no way dishonoring any of those specific interests, because every one of the fields that we've spoken about take absolute lifetimes, more than lifetimes, to master in themselves. Um, And if that is what is right for somebody, then that is to spend their life mastering that thing, then that is right. But I am trying really hard to find the balance of keeping my heart open to then keep what can fulfill me very open, as well as um, doing those things at the level that they deserve to be done.
Yeah. So real quick, Aryssa, we got a few more minutes, maybe a couple minutes. I want to ask you, what is your vision for your company? Where do you see it going? And I'm just going to say 10 years from now, what are we going to be coming back here talking about?
I think we will be coming back and talking about concerts that don't just happen in one area of the country or the world. I think we will be talking about ALB produces putting on productions that are not just centered on Aryssa singing. I certainly hope that that is something that we're talking about, that it is ALB producing the ideas that might really mean something to me, but more importantly, mean something to our community. And then finding the best artists to speak about those things and to sing on those things, even if it's not literally singing, but metaphorically sing on those things. And I hope and plan for us to be speaking about a word that I've used a million times already, but that we are speaking about a community that is built on the basis of art making through, around, for, and with one another.
That's wonderful. Well, we're going to end it right on that. Aryssa, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Self-Employed and Rising. And I just want to wish you all success in what you're doing. I think it's wonderful. And we will have you back here, and it won't be 10 years, just to check in and see how you're doing. And to all of our viewers, thank you for watching. And we'll see you back here next Thursday with another show. I'm setting an example for my kids.
I got me a side hustle.
I have more control of my destiny.
I need multiple streams of income.
It's hard work, but I'm working for me.
A job is cool, but I need more.
It's all about being self-employed. You're tuned into the world of Self-Employed and Rising with Art Taylor, where we bring you the amazing stories of people who are challenging the odds and following their dreams of self-employment. Learn from their successes and be inspired. Hear creative ideas for your business and find tips to take your hustle to another level.